My name is Lisette Lutz, and today we will be creating abstract textured watercolor paintings inspired by Mette Tommerup's artwork. We will be exploring texture and color through experimentation. This lesson is for elementary students, grades 2 through 5.
For this lesson, the materials that we will need are a few sheets of 9 by 12 inch watercolor paper. Here I have 2 sheets. We're going to be doing a few different samples. You're also going to need some watercolor brushes, a little container you'll need to put some salt. And this is just regular natural sea salt, table salt, it's fine. You can also use the coarse kosher salt or ice cream salt, which is like rock salt. They're gonna give you different varying effects. So for today's demonstration, I have regular table salt. You'll also need a container with some clean water, some plastic wrap, cling wrap. So we'll need a large sheet torn out, a little bit bigger than the size of your paper, and you'll just have that sheet pre-cut and just kind of on standby. I have here a tray of watercolor paints. You can also use these liquid watercolor paints. They work really well. I have baby wipes, some crayons where I've removed the paper, so we'll be needing those a little bit later, and leaves, so you can go around in your yard, go for a walk, and collect some different shapes, some different size leaves with different textures and different lengths and varying sizes, so that you get some variety in your project. And of course, like always, I cover my space. I have a piece of parchment paper and some paper towels also, just to clean up any messes. First watercolor paper, let me put this one to the side. For my first one, I'm going to be mixing some blues and greens. So for step 1, we're going to be doing the plastic wrap technique. You're going to wet your paper, and you want to really make sure that you are wetting the entire surface of the paper. Sometimes I like to use 2 brushes or even 3. You can do this. This is a trick. And you're just gonna wet that paper like you're mopping the floor with these brushes. You're mopping the paper with that clean water. So now that it's nice and wet, I don't think I've missed any spots. We're gonna paint. So I'm gonna be doing, I said, blues and greens. And I'm just dropping the color onto the paper and letting it do its thing, because the water right now, it's having the paint travel across the page. I'm gonna do some brush strokes and some spreading, but you really don't wanna spread your brush and get rid of the magic that's going on right now on the page. Okay, so like I said, we need to work quickly. This is still wet, things are moving and flowing, and this is the time now to get your plastic wrap. And once you put it down, you cannot touch it. You have to just let it be. So you're going to place it down on the paper and just press. So you're gonna have wrinkles and lines, but please remember, don't move what you just did, because then you're gonna undo all of that, the beauty of those wrinkles and lines. We have to make sure that this dries completely before you can reveal and show the beauty of what happens with the plastic wrap and the watercolor and the effects that it makes when it dries together. All right, so this is now completely dry, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the plastic wrap off, and you can see what interesting textures that plastic wrap created. As the watercolor was absorbing and drying, a lot of the pigmentation of the paint got trapped in the plastic wrap, and it pulled some of it off. And it reminds me kind of like on a sunny day when you're sitting by the pool and you see the sun hitting the water. You see all those beautiful lines that the light with the sun reflecting off of it make. I'm going to show you now the technique using salt. So again, you're going to need a sheet of watercolor paper. This one is 9 by 12 inches. I'm using purples and blues. Ideally, you want clean, crystal clear water, but since I'm using blues and purples, this water is going to be fine. So step 1 is to wet your paper. Again, I'm using 3 brushes just so that I can work quickly to get it wet faster. Once the paper is nice and wet, you're going to drop your colors on top. So I'm going to be using blues and purples. So dropping those colors, you can see that the water and paint are working their magic. It's spreading and flowing beautifully across the page with little effort on my part. I'm just dabbing some color. Okay, so I think that's enough because you can get carried away here with the paint. It's so much fun. Quickly, now before this dries, you want to make sure that you go in, and now I'm using this table salt, and you're going to sprinkle it in those little puddles of paint and water. And what you're gonna see happen, you're gonna notice that the salt, if you did it right and you didn't wait too long and it's still wet, the salt is going to absorb that color and water. So it's soaking it up, drinking it in. The salt should be dark now. It should be the color of the pigment. And again, once you put the salt down, you do not want to get your brush and paint and move things around, because then you're going to ruin the process of what's happening now. So you want to allow the salt to absorb that paint and give it time to dry. So we're going to let this dry for a few hours. All right, so here I have some that are already dry that I had done earlier. So this one you can see with the purple, I did purples and reds. The salt has dried. You can just brush it off and dust it off. Sometimes the salt sticks to it, but you can see that it looks almost like crystal formations. It does this beautiful effect. Almost reminds me of like looking at one of those galaxy paintings, where the colors kind of go and swirl and make these little starburst effect. I did this here also with the yellow, and you can see wherever the salt is sitting, it picked up that pigment, making those kind of a starburst or crystal effect in those areas. So you've got some really interesting papers to work with now. So what can we do with these? These are just beautiful just to hang up just the way that they are, but we can take this a step further and we can do some leaf rubbings and bring in some more nature into this project. So I went out and I gathered different leaves in my neighborhood, and I'm gonna be using crayons, just regular wax crayons. I've removed the paper, and you're gonna arrange those leaves underneath your finished dried watercolor paper. Okay, so once you have your leaves arranged underneath your paper, we're gonna go ahead and use some colors and rub. So you're gonna use your crayon sideways, and you have to use quite a bit of pressure. And completely rub over that leaf. And what's gonna happen is that it's gonna reveal the shape of that leaf. And you can see all of that beautiful texture that that creates. So you can have a beautiful composition with different variety of leaves, different sizes and shapes and textures just by using those watercolor techniques and some things found in your neighborhood. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Thank you.